This week on ManUp, from 800-pound hogs to hard conversations, West Texas rancher Victor Bredding shows how the hunt is only the beginning. We talk marriage, fatherhood, real consequences, and building a family culture that outlives you. Saddle up, men. Let's love our wives, lead our kids, walk with Jesus, and leave a legacy worth following.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the ManUp Adventure Podcast, where we believe that being a man of God isn't just about comfort, it's about calling. Anyway, we're going to have a great time today, isn't that right, Caleb?
That's right. Yep, and I'm your co-host, Caleb Gwaltney. This podcast is for men who want to step up and be better husbands, fathers, leaders, and disciples, and we're excited to kick it off today.
Yeah. Today we got a brother with us who gets it. He's a husband, a father, a grandfather, a man who's using what God's given him, which I think is so cool, a ranch in West Texas, not just for hunting, but to help men and young people find purpose, discipline, and faith. So please welcome Mr. Victor Bredding to the show today.
Terry, thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thank you for being here, Victor. We're super excited to hear from you today.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, before we talk about the ranch, which, we're riveted into that. I know the producer in the room is going on an elk hunt in 2 weeks. I'm sitting here staring at an 800-pound hog that I killed, and Caleb's got a bunch of whitetail hogs at his house. We're all into this whole hearing about your ranch, but before we start on that, every guy has a story, and the stories are what shape men. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey as a husband, a dad, as just a man trying to walk with Jesus?
Yeah, it's, the journey started when, I was young. My mom and dad had put me into a Christian school up until, I was in sixth grade. So they kind of set the pace and the tone, for my life. And as you well know, you try to be an adult and you steer left, sometimes just a little bit. And, then you kind of meet my wife, which really is the backbone of what straightened me out and said, Victor, we need to go back to the right. So that's really, I would say, where to me and everything starts from, and that's your parents. Did your parents give you the upbringing and, quite honestly, the discipline to put you on the path that eventually, that you're going to wind back up at?
So you mentioned a significant other. So I'm guessing there's still a wife in the picture, maybe some kids, grandkids. What's all that look like?
Yeah, so my wife and I have been together for 16 years. There's 5 kids. We've got one daughter from this, and a couple of twins on my wife's side. And the twins have been a major part of what's happening to the ranch. Like, between them and myself, we technically have built this whole ranch ourselves from the lodge all the way up. The only thing we didn't do was the HVAC, because I don't think I'm smart enough to do that. But yeah, the kids have been the backbone too of our heritage and what we're trying to do at the ranch.
It is cool. So Victor, sounds like you started hunting at a pretty young age. Kind of became a part of your identity, maybe it sounds like, from what I've read and gathered from Terry. Looking back at a young age, when you kind of got out in the field and started your hunting adventures and being outdoors, what values from those early years kind of shaped how you see life and your family and your faith journey, and the kind of influence it had on you?
Well, one is the part of life that's nothing's given. You don't go out in the field and say, hey, it's there it is, cut the rope and let's go take a shot, right? So you have to do your research. You have to study, you have to plan, you have to be prepared, and you have to be in the right situation at the right time. So it kind of teaches you that life's a turn of events. Be prepared for the change. Even though you had a plan, you kind of have to alter it. Depends on what's going on in your life. And my appreciation for the outdoors just was absolutely wonderful. And then as you continue your journey through Christ, you realize that that's God's creation and how special it is to be able to be a part of it.
As you was building the ranch, was there a big why behind it? I mean, I know for me, sometimes the why in the beginning kind of morphs and it becomes a whole lot deeper with a whole lot more layers. Was it just simply for you, the outdoors, or was it about creating a place that, represents deeper values? What was it for you?
Well, I would love to be able to tell you that I take the credit for the plan, but it kind of morphed. God led me down the way because Victor wasn't smart enough to figure it out.
I hear
So
that.
it really became, the first part was just a retirement, for my wife and I. We lived in Houston for 20 years, and you lived in the DFW Metroplex for 25, and the outdoors was always something that I thrived in, and we weren't going to retire in a city. So it kind of led us on that journey. And honestly, my son and I were on a prairie dog hunt in Nebraska, and he always wanted to raise whitetail. So he's looking for property he could buy, and he found this ranch. He said, "Man, Dad, hey, there's animals on this property. It's high fence. Hey, let's go look at it." So Rhonda and I came and looked at it, and it was instant, knowing that, okay, this is where we're supposed to be. So then it became, okay, we're just going to have this as a, kind of a weekend getaway for everybody. We'll bring the family together, we can hunt, and started building a lodge. And I kind of went, it's not really wise that Victor gets to spend all this money. I think Uncle Sam needs to help me out just a little bit on the tax side. So then the LLC started. And then honestly, God led me to Cross Trails, which is Casey Allen, the state director here. And then Gordon Melton, which is Hunting with Soldiers, at our very first show there in Wichita Falls. And from then on, God's led me down the path of what this ranch was supposed to be. And that's about giving back to people that honestly that need it, or people that we need to show a way of finding their way to Christ.
Wow. Tell us a little bit more about those two organizations that you just mentioned for listeners that maybe don't have a clue.
So Hunting with Soldiers probably been around 2 decades. The founder and the guy that runs it is Gordon Melton. And he's pretty well devoted his entire life to help wounded warriors or veterans in the outdoors. Part of his battle is to help them with their PTSD. And I've learned from being around a bunch of them now, because I didn't serve. So you're outside looking in, trying to figure out, what is this? What is the issue? And you watch them get together, and it's like a camaraderie. Gordon said, watch, within 5 minutes, they're buddies. And they do. They come together because there's this shared feeling of what they did for this country, and what a lot of them have sacrificed for this company that you can't experience. So we've been doing a lot of hunts. Give you the example again of, to me, what this ranch stands for. In 3 years, we've done 49 donated hunts. So part of that led to CTO, which is Casey Allen. We met him, same thing at Wichita Falls, got to know him. And realized really what he was. I just thought it was another donation, 501c, okay. And then you get to know him, and you watch this young man's passion about Christ. You watch what he's done in the ministry that he gives to these kids. So that became 29 kids having their first harvest of their life, and 4 giving their life to Jesus. So that is where this journey has led us. That I had to laugh and say, I couldn't plan this. I had no earthly idea. So, God's just kind of grabbed me by the nose and said, Victor, this is the way you need to go.
That is so cool. That is cool. So give us a little bit of information to the ManUp Nation. If we had guys that was interested in coming down to your ranch, what kind of experience, what could they expect? What would that look like?
So we're a family group, right? My 90-year-old mother-in-law behind us, she has the Bless the Harvest every time it comes in, has to see the animals, say grace over it. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law now live here. They bought property a mile down the street, so they're part of the ranch. They here help us cook, entertain with the folks. My kids are a part of it. So number one, we're family, right? Our slogan, "Where we treat you like family," didn't come from us. It came from all of our reviews. So we want to treat people, one, about being a part of a family, right? We want to sit with them. We want to dine, break bread with them. We want to get to know them, right? A lot of times you're going to come to a ranch, you never meet the owner, never know who he is, doesn't participate in any is, and I participate in everything we do because I want to know our clients. Second part is an adventure. The mystique of a high fence ranch for everybody that lives up north is, oh my God, let's go cut the rope around their neck. Okay, let me hold them. Hey, come here, goat. You can do this now. And they need to experience on this ranch that it's a hunt. 85 to 90% of all of our hunts are spot and stalk. They're not sitting in a stand. We have to find them, chase them, figure out where they're at, ambush them, whatever we got to do. So I would tell you, number one, it's going to be a hunt. Number two, you're going to be treated like family. And the third thing is my wife's a 30-year culinary teacher, so I promise you you'll enjoy the food.
I'm
Sounds like a
in.
great time.
Yeah. Sold. Where do we
Very
sign
cool.
up? So, like, what are we going to be chasing and stalking if we're at the breeding ranch?
So we grow our own whitetail. We've got a breeder pen, as well as what they call shooters. We bring shooters in as need be, because the one thing I learned a long time ago on starting this ranch is I basically knew how to harvest things. I didn't know how to keep them alive. So I've been experiencing the lesson of, okay, Victor, you got to figure out how to keep these things alive, because all of them, at some point in time want to go hang themselves on a fence or something. So we've got breeding our whitetail, got our axes, we have our fallow, nilgai. We bring elk in as needed. We just bought a stag herd that we're bringing in probably at the end of August. We've got aoudad and rams. That's kind of our
Mm,
bread and butter. I tell everybody, if there's something you specifically want, we can go find it. Texas probably has 400 different breeding facilities, a ranch, in the state, that are high fence. So if you want it, we can go find it.
wow. Yeah, I think I seen online somebody was hunting a buffalo.
We've got some bison that are on a neighboring. So I thought about bringing it in one time, and I thought, those boys decide they really don't want to live on this ranch. It doesn't take them much to punch through a fence. So one of the neighbors in town has a grocery store that's been kind of the mainstay of Alney, Texas forever. And they raise bison to butcher sometimes for their grocery store. So I've made a deal with them to be able to go hunt bison on their property.
Mm, yeah, that's awesome.
That is cool.
Well, if we're going to talk adventures, let's talk marriage. I mean,
There you go.
God, you know, one of the greatest adventures, and I think sometimes can also be for men some of the greatest battles. How's being a husband shaped you as a man of God?
I got to give honest, wife the whole credit. She was the cornerstone of my faith. I had a great basis, growing up, from my mom. But then you stray away and you do things you shouldn't do, and you go after things you shouldn't go after. And then I found my wife, and she's just been the blessing that has pulled me, in the right direction. Now, I've got to be honest. I tell my wife all the time, she's kind of a 60-40. She's probably 60% female, but 40% male. So I get along with her pretty good. I don't have to call her every second of the day and tell her how much I love her and bring her flowers. I think one of her last birthday presents was a 375, so she could go hunt her lioness. So she's my kind of
There
woman.
you go. Absolutely.
Match made in heaven.
It was exceptional.
Oh,
That's
that is
awesome.
awesome. So what about fatherhood? I mean, I know as men we feel the weight of, or at least I do, and I think a lot of our audience, leading well our family, specifically our kiddos, and if you have grandkids, what's the lessons you've learned raising kids? Maybe some wisdom you'd want to impart on some of us, especially starting out with younger kids in a family, and now watching your grandkids, which you would want to pass on to other dads this season in your life.
I kind of take this the same way as I do business. You lead from the front, not the back, right? Again, never been in the military, but that's what you do, right? You can't tell people what to do and not do it. One of my favorite sayings is toes and tongues, and I've learned that from a great leader of an organization I was with a long time ago, and that is, if your mouth is wagging, your toes better be following. So I just kind of short it to toes and tongues. So to me, leading your family means you've got to be the one that's setting the pace and the tone. You can't just tell them what to do and then go back and do something different. So that's probably the first thing. The second thing, behind it is you got to love them. I tell my kids every single time we get on the phone or I leave, I love them. There is no doubt in their mind. Number one, I'm going to show them, but I'm also going to tell them at that same point in time that they know that love is basically there. And then the third, I think, which is important, is consequences. I had one of my sons that we sat and talked, and I said, "Hey, you tell me a lie, you're going to be punished." Well, after about the second one, I just started adding 2 weeks. So he was about 3 months without a TV and a phone and nothing but sitting in his room. So you got to have consequences too. What's that saying about how do you know I love you? Because I spanked you, because I
Hmm.
care enough not to let you go do something stupid, get yourself killed, or get yourself locked up behind bars. So I believe that love has to come with discipline.
I think, everybody could have different opinions on what discipline should look like. I think the consequence, has to meet, whatever the poor decision was. But at the end of the day, there has to be a consequence. There has to be a parent that's going to stand up and be a parent and not be worried about whether their kid likes him as their best friend in that moment. And that's part of what we lost. At the end of the day, it takes work to be a good parent. Some parents are just not willing to put the time in to be intentional about it, and then they want to complain on why their kids have ended up the way they've ended up, and it's just kind of sad.
Well, and that's honestly, so my wife was a 35-year educator, and that's what made her retire. She was also the head cheer coach because she cheered at OSU. So she kind of carried that all the way through. And, you call a parent, and then the first thing the parent says, well, have you talked to my kid? Well, yeah, yes, ma'am, I've talked to him. Well, there has to be a reason why he did it. So you need to go talk to the teacher because it's all the teacher's fault. And that's when she finally went, okay, this is not working. The kids are disrespectful. They don't care. They don't treat you nice. The fights go in the hall and you don't dare get near it because you touch that child. All of a sudden you're the bad person. So I agree 100%. My favorite other saying is respect is not given. Respect is earned. Every time I go into my projects, my jobs, whatever this ranch is, I'm going to earn your respect. That is my job, is to earn your respect. Your job is to make sure that respect goes two ways. It's not just a one-way street.
Yeah, that's good. If you'd go back to your younger self, let's say 25 years old, what would you tell that version of Victor about being a husband and a father?
One, you don't have to be so hard. Growing up in the field, construction all of my life, your superintendent route, and I was a foreman at 18 years old with, 40, 50-year-old men around me. So you had to be tough, and you had to act tough. And then you realize you don't have to climb over people's heads, to be a good leader. And 25 years ago, I had a good mentor about servitude leadership, about what it really takes to be not only just a servant of men, but a servant of God. So I would tell myself, you don't have to push so hard, right? I believe I was taught in my version 10s and 1s. God gave you 10, which makes you 1 on the opposite side. And I tried to change, think, the middle of the road, so let's make it all a 5. Well, the only job I've ever lost money on is when I changed the God-given 10s. I just learned bring the 1s up to a 3. I can still take the hill. I can still charge it. I just need to listen to you and ask you a question instead of telling you what to do.
Good advice.
So talking a little bit more about the ranch, kind of jumping around here in legacy, you were talking about how your ranch is more than just a hunting experience. It's about passing something on. How has faith kind of shaped the way you think about manhood and more so than that, your legacy and what you're leaving?
Well, the very first thing is, the ranch makes money to give back. It doesn't make money to line my pockets. It makes money to give back, right? So the ability for us to be able to do the things we've did, and we've kind of branched out a little bit on some debilitating injuries that have happened to children, some terminally ill. So that legacy to me is twofold, right? Leaving something for my kids. And I'm going to give you a quick short story of my wife, right? When we first got here, started building the ranch, decided this was going to be a business, I spent 15 years building my wife's retirement home, right? Because I'm a builder, so that's what I like to do. So she finally told me, well, there's not enough grass left. Stop building. I want, a little grass in my backyard. So you get to a point in time, all of a sudden there's 100 animals on the property. And I tell my wife, babe, we can't live 2 hours away and raise these animals. They've got to be taken care of. And oh man, she hated me for a long time. But the moral of the story is once she got understood and she got here and she got to this portion of the deal, she understood what our mission was, right? What our heritage is. So she asked both the twins when they were sitting down together, okay, if something happens to us, we're going to pass this on to you. Here's this house and all that we built and the pool and blah, 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 and here's the ranch. What would you have? And one of the sons said, well, Mom, if you die in the house, I just don't know if I want to live in the house. And she goes, well, same thing for the ranch. No, it'll be okay, Mom.
There's your answer, huh?
It was a pretty simple answer about the heritage, right? So it's giving my kids something other than a house. I mean, to me, this is something. This is things that we do. I am hoping that we are teaching them to continue this legacy of giving back.
That's so cool.
Like if you think to the next generation, like when your grandkids look back one day, what do you hope they will say about the breading way? Like when we talk legacy, we think many times in terms of assets and bank accounts, but real legacy is so much more than monetary things. It's really those values that we're passing on, that way of life that we're wanting to influence and hope they carry that out. What do you hope they say about the breading way? Like, what would you describe that? What is that?
One's hard work. Started out 48 years ago as a labor with a shovel in my hand. Determination, hard work. Part of that, I'll give you kind of an example, for my daughter. Well, I've got one. So one of the twins just got accepted. I got to brag a little bit. One of the twins just got accepted to med school at Texas Tech. He almost gave up. This is his third year that he was trying to get in. So part of that is we don't give up. You don't stop on your dreams. You continue no matter what it is. Life is sacrifice, but there's always this lining at the end. And quite honestly, God has a plan, right? Because he went to Abilene Christians where he came from. So I know he knows the value, but he was ready to give up. My daughter, same thing, smart, another smart one. Well, she got pregnant when she was 18 years old. So it's like you kind of have to give up the dream. Well, then there's the second child. So fast forward to 10 years later, as she's raising two kids on her own, she put herself through college and is now a teacher basically in one of the junior highs all on her own. So perseverance, don't give up, hard work, and respect are probably the things that mean the most to me.
That is awesome. So I have a question too, something that really lays on my heart with your ranch. I'm avid outdoorsman, been in construction my whole life. I also learn with my hands. So that all speaks to me. What really fires me up though is that you've turned your ranch into a place where you can help people and open the gates for young people, young men, young families, groups like the Cross Trail Outfitters. Why do you think the outdoors is such a powerful tool to reach people? Just
Well, one, it is God's creation. It's pretty easy to tell somebody if God wouldn't have created it, we can't enjoy it. So the message starts out pretty simple. The other thing just comes again to, what God had given you and an appreciation for a harvest. That's one of the biggest things that happened is the prayer that happens over the harvest, of an animal to thank God for giving this creation to us. The other, there's just something about sitting outside at a fireplace, and talking about what you did for the day. And honestly, the shot you just missed and having to kind of pick it up and get ready for tomorrow because you can't give up, right? So there's so many lessons in what happens in the planning, right? And things don't go your way. Okay, so what's the next plan? But to me, it's just getting outside, looking at the stars, looking at the heavens and looking what God has given us. I just, there's nothing like it. I guarantee you, I don't go to downtown Dallas and stare at the skyscrapers.
Well said. So do you have a story of a guy, maybe a young guy, maybe it's an older guy who just came to the ranch for a hunt, but he just left with something a whole lot deeper than just a trophy animal?
It's actually, believe it or not, is a huntress. We had a gentleman that been to the ranch a couple of times, ex-Army, retired out of the Army, just came to the ranch, hunted with us and that. And before him and his wife got married, he brought her. And you saw this beautiful post on Facebook about she now understands about conservation, and what God has given us and the respect, that we have to have for the conservation that we are in charge of, or that conservation disappears. That was probably one of the most fulfilling to me, but I'll be honest with you, anybody other than us. Because of Cross Trail Outfitters and the faith in what's going on, our whole family was rebaptized and committed ourselves to Christ. And CTO and Casey was the one that did the baptism for us. It's really what we have gained out of this as much as everybody else.
Yeah, I feel like, kind of again touched on it a while ago, but I feel like men learn in so many different ways. But I found even growing up myself, again, whether that's fishing or hunting, hiking, just being outside, that we all learn and, all learn things in different ways. We all can't, learn from a book or can't learn in the same environments. A lot of us thrive in the outdoors and really being in the creation of God. And I was just curious, what lessons has God taught you from being out in the field that kind of carry over into marriage or fatherhood, maybe your faith journey that seemed profound to you looking back through the years?
Part of it is that what we talked about is the not giving up thing, and that's the same thing in your faith, right? You're going to have things that happen in your life you're going to question and go, why is this happening to me? And you have to trust the journey. So part of that is is that not giving up in your faith, right? I can remember we were in Africa and I was hunting this bush buck, and man, I bet I saw him 15 times, could not get a shot, and I was mad. Came in, put the gun in the back of the deal, and told my wife I'm done. And I remember she grabbed the rifle, shoved it back in my chest, and said, "No, you're not. Get back out there." So I think in our faith and in our walk, there is no promise that life is good. You still have to do it yourself, right? I have a hard time sometimes with people that basically said, well, just God didn't want me to do this. Well, how do you know? Because you never tried. I mean, you do have to put the effort. You do have to try and put it in there. And it's no different than being in the field. I am still, after a hunt in northern Quebec, Canada, in Newfoundland, and in Alaska, been skunked on a caribou, but I ain't done.
Oh.
We're going to go back. So I think part of this is it's not a given, right? Your faith can't be just saying it's a given. Everything's going to happen. I don't have to try. So to me, it's this try portion of the thing and not give up. And, the old cowboy saying is dust your pants off, get back on the horse.
Yeah. That's good. I was listening to a podcast earlier in the week that what you just said made me think of it. And he said just something very small but was profound, that life is hard and God is good. I feel like we can have this conception that, with our walk with the Lord, everything's going to be perfect. It's going to be easy, and our expectations might be here. Well, we're still living here on earth until we, depart from here to go to heaven. And it never says in the Bible that life's going to be easy and things are going to be great. But he said, life is hard and God is good. And that's something we can cling on to while we're here. Just kind of goes along with that. Good reminder.
Absolutely. God's blessed us in so many ways. And I understand there's bumps and humps on the road, and that's okay, because I still believe in not giving up. I've always said there's nothing in my life I can't do. I just have to commit. Now, committing sometimes is a little tough, because if I'm not all in, I'm not going to do it. Like when my wife says, hey, you need to do this. Well, she quickly realized that my list was 2 lists and hers was on the second list.
Yeah, there's another show for another day.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Oh, I poke the bear all the time. It's okay.
All right, so I want to go into some rapid fire moments here, and you give me some short answers, just kind of some gut level stuff. I'll just throw them at you real quick. Are you up for that?
Yes, sir.
What's one piece of advice every husband should live by?
One piece of advice. Man, that is so tough, because other than leave your pants at the door, I guess as men, sometimes we don't consider what the wife brings to the table, right? Because we're marching forward, we're doing what God said, providing for the family, and that nurturing and taking care of and caring, that sometimes is in my back. It's in the back of my mind. My first thing is, what do I have to get done? How long is it going to take me? What do I got to do next? So the wives carry a huge role basically in what we do. And I think cherishing your wife for what she brings to the table is extremely important.
One important thing a father can do for his kids. Or let me back that up. Most important thing.
Most important is you've got to lead. You can't tell them what to do and not follow what you say.
What's the biggest mistake men are making in their family life right now?
Probably taking advantage of what you've got and not appreciating on a daily basis, which is easy to do. We all know you take things out on the person you love the most. And you have to kind of stop and think, the reason why you love them is why they're here. So kind of stop, take a breath every now and then.
Yeah. You have a certain legacy that you pray over your family. You pray that your family carries on.
I would say care for one another and respect. I think the respect in our world has just totally disappeared.
I would agree. And the last one, when your time here on the earth is over, how do you want to be remembered?
That is a really good one. And it's kind of funny. My favorite saying is, I'm never going to be rich enough to have my name on a stadium. It's just going to be on a tombstone. But I think the thing I'd want to be remembered at is being a teacher and trying to help when you can.
Victor, thanks for sharing your heart today, man. We really appreciate you. You remind us that manhood isn't about titles and success and all the things. It's about faithfulness. It's your journey to God and what you're doing to our wives and our families and our kids. And it's been really, really awesome hearing about just your heart and your ranch and what you're doing with it and how you're giving back. It's really, really awesome. We appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Victor, tell the listeners today where they can go to learn more about coming and having this kind of experience at your ranch in Texas.
Yes, sir. So if you go on the website, it's breadingtexanranch.com. If you search us on Facebook, it's B-TEX. That's our DBA of Breading Texan Ranch, or you can just do Breading Texan Ranch. So Facebook and our website are the two most common. Thanks, Terry.
Awesome. Man, listen, your family already has a culture. The question is, did you build it or did you just let it happen? If you don't like what you see, change it. Your family culture will never rise above your walk with God. That's super important for you to remember. So let's man up, love your wife, lead your kids, walk with Jesus, leave a legacy that's worth following. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Man Up podcast. We hope today's episode challenged and inspired you to become a better man, father, and husband. Remember, failure isn't final, and you're not alone on this journey. Find more resources at manupadventure.com. Stay connected with us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at ManUp Adventure Camp. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at ManUp Adventure. Rate and review the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts to help more men find their tribe. Thank you for being part of this movement. Let's continue to live on purpose and leave a mark that can't be erased.